Now we will learn about the last fund categories, which is the fiduciary funds. And this is the third or the last category of the funds under the fund financial statements. In chapter 16, you just learned a little bit about the names of the different type of fiduciary funds. Here in Baker concept, we will also briefly review those type of funds. We don't need to go very details, so let's start with what do you mean by fiduciary funds. So fiduciary funds are the money or the fund, those are held by the government, those are controlled by the government. Governmental entity has the ability to direct the use of the money, but government, those are not the government's own source. That means government is not a beneficiary. Rather, there are other parties, individuals or other private parties will be the beneficiaries of those funds. So government is holding money as a trust or the entity and holding money for others for a temporary period, and then later the money will be disbursed to that actual beneficiary, and those are individuals. So here you will see four major categories. One is the custodial. In textbook it's called the agency fund. Another is investment trust fund, private purpose trust fund, pension and other employee benefit transfer fund. So to remember it easily, the Baker book used this acronym CIPPOE. C is for the custodial fund, I is for investment trust fund, P is for private purpose fund, another POE means pension and other employee benefit funds. So let's focus on the custodial funds. A custodial funds means the fund where the cash or money is collected and is held by the government temporarily for an authorized recipient to whom the government will disburse the money later. Three common examples are here: tax collection funds, clearance funds, special assessment funds. Tax collection funds means when one local government is collecting tax for an overlapping governmental unit and then will remit the amount of tax that the local government collects. So temporarily the local government is holding the tax money. Clearance fund means that the government is collecting revenues from different sources, and then later the government will disburse or distribute those revenues to the appropriate beneficiaries. So one example will be pass-through grants. Special assessments means for those type of funds and involve government is not responsible or obligated for that debt. Next category is the investment trust funds. So for these pool of funds, you will see here government actually sponsors one or more external investment pools and then report those external investment pools, and for each pool the government will prepare a separate investment trust fund. So for all types of fiduciary funds, you will see the governmental entity will prepare one statement of net positions and another is a statement of changes in net positions. But remember, fiduciary funds actually do not prepare any statement of cash flows. Now you will see another category of fiduciary fund, which is private purpose trust funds. For these private purpose trust funds means that government is holding the fund as a trustee, and that fund could be involved in the principal amount and the income, and then those will be disbursed to some individuals and private organizations later. This is called the private purpose trust. And the last category is very common, is pension trust and pension and other employee benefit trust. So this is the trust fund that government can sponsor, and those are the defined benefit and defined contribution plans and other employee benefit plans such as post-retirement healthcare benefits. So these are the four major categories of the fiduciary fund. Again, for fiduciary funds, we will use the accrual accounting and government is holding money for other people. Government itself, the entity, governmental entity is itself not a beneficiary, but government can control that money and can direct the use of the money. But after certain period, government needs to disburse the money to the actual beneficiary, which could be an individual or any private organizations. And remember, for fiduciary funds, you will prepare statement of net positions, statement of changes in net positions, but no statement of cash flow. Statement of cash flow. On the other hand, if you remember from our proprietary funds, enterprise fund and internal service revenue funds, they will prepare statement of cash flows and following the accrual method. Now we will have two quick questions. Fish Road property owners in C County are responsible for special assessment debt. So it says it's a special assessment debt, and that arose from a storm sewer project. If the property owner's default, C has no obligation regarding the debt service. So it's a special assessment, and then the entity has no obligation about the debt service. So clearly, what type of fund category it will be? It will be a custodial fund. Now, second question, Ireland City's accounts contain the following cash balances. Forfeitures Act cash, it's from any sort of illegal activities that the city collected, and that can be used only for law enforcement activities. So they have some fines and that they collected, and they want to use it especially for that law enforcement activities. So then they have some sales tax revenues that collected, and they want to distribute it to other governmental units. Now, what amount of cash should Ireland report in its private purpose trust fund? So now look at those items and what type of funds it seems that they are involved. So for the first one, they collected those fines, but those will be used for law enforcement activities. So it sounds like some special revenue funds. Those fines and fees that they collected, they will be used for those specific purposes. So we can call it as special revenue funds. On the other hand, the sales tax they collected and that they will be distributed to other governmental units, it sounds like a custodial fund, because under custodial you will see there are three categories. One is the sales tax collection fund, so it goes under custodial fund. So basically nothing is here for the private purpose trust fund. So the answer will be 0 or A. Remember, private purpose transfers, those funds government is holding, and the actual beneficiaries will be some individuals and private organizations, not another governmental units, or not the money will be used for any specific governmental purposes.